The camera might be off, but the tension is louder than ever. Patrick says he's holding $7,000. That belongs to the Whittakers. The internet says he's holding the truth. Hostage. And in a community already split by loyalty, addiction, and exposure, one man's decision not to pay has turned into a moral storm that everyone wants to talk about. It started like all the other chapters in this long, twisted story. Quietly, a live stream, a clip, a comment thread that caught fire. Patrick appeared on Lady K's channel, joined by Toddy, and somewhere between the laughter and the questions, he dropped the bombshell. He admitted he's got $7,000 that technically belongs to the Whittaker family, but he's not giving it to them. His reason? He says BJ will just use it for drugs. And from that moment, the conversation stopped being about money. It became about judgment. For months, Patrick has been painted as the problem, the man who turned against the Whittakers after fame. Donations and YouTube checks began rolling in, but in this latest revelation, he's trying to convince people that his refusal isn't greed. It's protection. He says he's saving the Whittakers from themselves, that if he handed over the money, it wouldn't fix anything. It would only feed addiction. The words hit hard. I'm not giving them the $7,000 because BJ ain't gonna do nothing but give it to the dope man and use it for dope. A brutal sentence, one that stings with both truth and hypocrisy, depending on who you ask. The Whittakers have always been a family defined by contradictions, love and chaos, loyalty and distance, pain and humor. They've lived their lives under the shadow of poverty for decades, long before the internet ever discovered them. But fame changes everything. It brings attention, and attention brings money. And when money shows up where poverty has lived too long, it tears through every fragile bond holding people together. That's what's happening now, according to Patrick. Everything started years ago when he began filming videos with Timmy the Whittaker, family member who first caught the world's eye. Patrick says he did it out of friendship, not profit. He wanted to help Timmy, to give him something to do, to bring laughter to a life that didn't have much of it. But when Eric from North Carolina entered the story, the man who later started filming the family professionally, everything changed. Suddenly, there were contracts, platforms, and money flowing in from multiple directions: Facebook, YouTube, and even sponsorships. And with that came promises. The profits would be split 3 ways: Patrick, Eric, and the Whittakers. But those promises didn't hold. Patrick says that under the agreement, any page or channel that used Whittaker content would have its income divided in thirds: 1/3 for him, 1/3 for Eric, and 1/3 for the family. Simple in theory, messy in reality, because when the checks started coming, no one could agree on what Whittaker content really meant. Patrick had his own Facebook page. Where it all began, he says that page, his personal page, belongs to him. And that the $14,000 Facebook payout he earned in August wasn't family money, but under the contract, he admits there's one thing that is family money, that's $7,000, the $7,000 that he's refusing to hand over. In Patrick's words, he's not about to work and hand money to BJ just so she can go down the road and spend it on drugs. To him, giving that money is enabling destruction, not supporting family. He's watched BJ spiral before. He's seen what happens when money lands in the wrong hands. He's tired, he says, of pretending that throwing cash at addiction is kindness, but to everyone else, especially to the fans who've donated over the years, it sounds like control, because once money enters the moral debate, everyone's right and everyone's wrong. It's not the first time money has divided the Whittakers. For years, donations meant for help have turned into whispers: who handled it, where it went, who spent it. In an environment where poverty is constant and temptation is everywhere, every dollar becomes a test of character. And now, Patrick is standing in the middle of that test, holding the one thing everyone wants: the cash. He's been accused of lying, of hoarding, of manipulating, but he insists he's protecting. He claims he hasn't touched the $7,000. It's still in an account. He says, waiting for something, maybe proof, maybe forgiveness, maybe justification. The internet, as always, has chosen sides. Some people call Patrick greedy, a man living off their story while pretending to save them. Others see him as the only rational one, someone trying to stop a cycle of destruction. That's been eating this family alive for years, because everyone who's followed the Whittakers knows one thing. BJ's addiction isn't a rumor. It's a visible, painful reality. The same viewers who once cried watching her laugh in old interviews now shake their heads at the chaos that follows her name. So when Patrick says he doesn't trust her with the money, it doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes from history. But even so, it raises a bigger question. Does moral judgment give anyone the right to withhold what isn't theirs? Who decides what the Whittakers deserve or how they should spend their own money? Patrick may think he's saving them, but to many people he's just another man using poverty as a moral stage, a man who once played the role of caretaker and now plays the role of gatekeeper. It's hard to tell where protection ends and power begins. Lady K's live stream exposed more than just one man's choice. It revealed the ongoing breakdown of trust between people who once claimed to be family. Toddy and Lady K pressed him on the issue, their tone sharp but calm. They wanted clarity. Patrick gave them deflection. They asked, "Why not just give them their share?" He said, "Because I know what they'll do with it." And in that moment, the divide between sympathy and superiority became crystal clear. Because once you start deciding who's worthy of their own money, you stop seeing them as equals. For many watching, Patrick's argument sounded eerily similar to how outsiders often talk about poor families. They don't know how to handle money, they'll just waste it. It's better if someone else decides for them. That kind of thinking has justified generations of control and humiliation, and now it's playing out again. Not in a courtroom, but on YouTube. That's the power of this story. It's not just about one man or one family. It's about how easily compassion turns into control, how quickly we decide who's responsible enough to be treated like an adult. And how, in trying to save people, we sometimes end up punishing them. Meanwhile, back in West Virginia, life hasn't changed. The house still sits in the same place. The same faces still sit on the porch, watching the days pass. The same rumors still drift through the air like smoke. But online, everything feels like it's on fire, because for the internet, $7,000 isn't just money, it's proof. Proof of who's honest, proof of who's lying, proof of who deserves what. And Patrick, whether he knows it or not, has become the judge in a trial no one asked him to hold. Some say he should just pay up, clear his conscience, and walk away. Others say he's right, that giving money to addicts is a waste of kindness. But there's a deeper truth buried underneath. No one in this story is winning. Not Patrick. Not BJ. Not the viewers who think they can fix it from behind a screen. It's all just another layer of pain built on top of years of misunderstanding and misplaced trust. And now, what used to be about family is about currency. What used to be about loyalty is about liability. And what used to be about help has turned into harm. Patrick says he's protecting them. BJ says he's robbing them. The viewers say they just want to know the truth. But the truth, like the money, is locked away, waiting for someone brave enough to handle it without turning it into content. And until that happens, the $7,000 will stay right where it is, in Patrick's account, collecting dust and resentment. Comment below. Do you think Patrick is right to hold the money? Or is he using addiction as an excuse to control it? Should he trust the Whittakers with their own share, even if it means watching them fall? The confession spread fast. Patrick's 4-hour appearance on Lady K's Live was barely over before the clips started circulating, chopped, shared, dissected, everywhere you looked online. People had an opinion on TikTok, on Reddit, on Facebook groups dedicated to the Whittakers. The words Patrick, $7,000, and BJ were everywhere. No matter which side you listened to, one thing was clear: the story had split the community in half. Some people said, he's right, he's doing the responsible thing. Others said, he's playing God with someone else's life. Because when Patrick said he wouldn't hand over the $7,000, he wasn't just refusing a payment, he was making a statement about worthiness. To him, that money was poisoned. In his mind, it represented temptation, relapse, chaos, a doorway back into the same pain. The world claims to pity, but secretly enjoys watching, and to everyone watching from the outside, it exposed something even darker, the way addiction can turn love into control and help into punishment. Patrick's reasoning was simple. At least on the surface. He said he'd seen BJ waste money before disappear for days. Spiral out of control. He'd seen what drugs had done to her, how they'd changed her eyes, her voice, her priorities. He said giving her cash wasn't love, it was destruction. But underneath that explanation sat something else, resentment, years of it. The kind that builds up quietly when you feel used, misunderstood, and underappreciated. Patrick has been called a lot of things: friend, caretaker, opportunist, manipulator, and he spent years being compared to Eric, the man who, in Patrick's view, took everything he built with the Whittakers and made it his own. So maybe holding on to the $7,000 isn't just about BJ's addiction. Maybe it's also about power, about holding the one thing that nobody else can take away. The irony isn't lost on the fans. Patrick says he's tired of being exploited, but now he's the one controlling the money. He says he's protecting the Whittakers, but he's also punishing them for not listening to him. It's the kind of circular logic that feels noble when you say it out loud, and cruel when you live it. Because if you strip away the moral arguments, the story looks simple. A man has money that isn't his, and he won't give it back. But morality never stays simple when addiction is involved. BJ isn't a mystery. Everyone knows who she is. She's the loud one on camera, the unpredictable energy that keeps people talking, the one whose story tugs at empathy and frustration at the same time. When viewers see her, they see someone raw, unfiltered, sometimes unstable, a woman who's survived more pain than she can name, but who keeps falling into the same traps. Patrick says he's trying to break that cycle, but by doing so, he's created another one, control disguised as concern, and that's where the internet split right down the middle. On one side are the people who defend him. BJ doesn't need cash. Give her food, clothes, a roof, not money. She just blow it. Patrick's doing the right thing. She needs help, not handouts. And then there's the other side. It's not his job to decide what she does with her money. He's no savior. He's playing moral cop with people he profits from. Both sides claim compassion. Both sides claim truth, but the truth is, neither side actually knows the full story, because the truth sits in the quiet moments, not in live streams or comment sections, but in the space between desperation and dignity. Patrick might think he's saving BJ from herself, but his refusal has turned the Whittakers against him once again. Betty, Larry, and BJ all say the same thing. Patrick owes them. They don't care what he thinks BJ might do with it. They just know what's fair, and in their world, fairness is rare. The Whittakers have lived most of their lives without much of anything, no control, no access, no justice. So when someone tells them that their money is being held for their own good, it hits a nerve deeper than most people realize, because for them, it's not about the money, it's about the feeling of being told, once again, that they don't know what's best for themselves. In Appalachian poverty, dignity is worth more than dollars. It's one of the few things you can't buy and can't fake. When you grow up hearing that outsiders know better, that your community, your choices, your people are broken, you start to see control as a form of humiliation. That's what makes Patrick's decision so complicated. He's not an outsider, he's one of them. He lives in the same place, breathes the same air, sees the same things, but somewhere along the line, the camera changed everything. It made Patrick more than a neighbor. It made him a gatekeeper, and once you hold the gate, it's hard to see yourself as part of the crowd again. People forget that Patrick was once seen as a hero. He was the one who spent time with the family, who filmed them, who made them laugh. He was the man who helped turn a quiet life in rural West Virginia into a global story of resilience and poverty. But when the story grew bigger than the people, everything changed. Now, that same man is being accused of hoarding, controlling, manipulating, all while insisting that he's the only one who truly cares. That's the tragedy of it. Patrick and the Whittakers were supposed to help each other. Instead, they became rivals in their own narrative. The $7,000 has become more than a debt. It's a symbol of broken trust. Patrick sees it as a line in the sand, proof that he's done letting people take advantage of him. BJ sees it as betrayal, proof that he's turned his back on the family he once claimed to protect. And the viewers see it as entertainment, a morality play they can debate while scrolling through comments. The longer Patrick holds on to that money, the louder the noise gets, but in a way that noise is exactly what keeps the story alive, because every YouTube comment, every Facebook post, every podcast mention turns private pain into public fuel. And everyone, even the people who claim to hate it, keeps watching. Patrick's defenders say he's a man fighting a system that rewards dysfunction. They say he's trying to keep the money from becoming another tragedy, that he's fighting addiction. Not people, but addiction doesn't play by anyone's rules. It doesn't need money to survive. It just needs pain, and there's plenty of that to go around. Patrick might hold the $7,000, but BJ holds something far more powerful. The narrative. Every time she speaks, cries, or lashes out, the internet listens. She's the chaos people can't look away from, and Patrick's choice to withhold the money has made her louder. Because every villain needs a hero, and every hero needs a villain. On Lady K's channel, Patrick tried to sound calm, measured, even logical. He talked about contracts, bank accounts, fairness, but behind every sentence, you could hear it, the exhaustion. He's tired of explaining himself, tired of feeling like no matter what he does, he's the bad guy. But that's the price of being the one holding the money. Once you control it, you control the story, and the story starts controlling you. It's not about whether Patrick's right or wrong anymore. It's about how power reshapes people, how it takes regular, small-town neighbors and turns them into internet archetypes: the hero, the addict, the villain, the victim, roles assigned by strangers with WI-FA. Meanwhile, on Facebook, someone posts another clip of BJ ranting about Patrick. In the comments, people call him selfish, evil, heartless. Others defend him, calling BJ a liar. It's digital chaos, a town hall where no one listens, but everyone speaks. Every screenshot, every live, every reaction video adds another layer to the wound. And through it all, Patrick keeps saying the same thing: I'm not giving them the money until I know it's going to be spent right. But who gets to decide what right? The Whittaker supporters point out that Patrick didn't earn the money alone. Those videos, the content that went viral, it wasn't just his face on screen. It was theirs, their voices, their laughter, their pain. Without them, there would be no Facebook check to argue over, and that's what keeps gnawing at the public's conscience. If the money came from their story, doesn't it belong to them, no matter how messy the outcome might be? Patrick might call it responsibility. Others call it theft in slow motion. Either way, the damage is done. This isn't the first time the world has seen someone justify control as care. In families touched by addiction, it happens every day. The parent who locks up cash for their own good, the sibling who hides pills to protect them, the friend who cuts off contact until they get clean. Every boundary comes from love, but every act of love risks becoming a cage. Patrick's decision sits right in that gray area, part protection, part punishment. And the truth is, even he might not know which one it is anymore. By the end of that live stream, Patrick had made one thing clear: the money isn't going anywhere. Not until he's sure. But sure of what? That BJ won't use again? That the Whittakers will spend it wisely? That the internet will finally believe him? None of those things will ever be certain. So maybe the real question isn't, will Patrick pay? It's, what is he really afraid of? Because when you listen closely to his voice, beneath the bravado, the frustration, the pride, you can hear it. Fear, not of BJ, not of money, but of losing the last bit of control he has left. Comment below. Do you think Patrick is protecting BJ from relapse? Or protecting himself from guilt? If you were in his shoes, would you hold the money or hand it over and walk away? The confession had already gone viral. But the real explosion came later. BJ heard what Patrick said, that he wouldn't give her the $7,000 because she'd just spend it on dope. And if you know BJ, you know one thing: silence is never her answer. Within hours, her voice echoed through live streams, comments, and posts, raw, furious, unfiltered. Her words weren't polished, but they didn't have to be. They were human. They were hurt. She said Patrick was a liar. She said he'd been using the family's name to make money and now was making excuses to keep what wasn't his. She said she didn't need his permission to live her life, even if it wasn't perfect. And in that single wave of anger, BJ did something Patrick couldn't. She turned pain into power. The internet lit up like it always does when a fight breaks out. Every comment section became a courtroom. People lined up on opposite sides, throwing their opinions like stones. Patrick's right. You don't hand money to an addict. BJ deserves her share. He's not their guardian. Both of them are wrong. They've turned pain into profit. In a few hours, the Whittakers' story stopped being about survival and turned into a global argument about morality, but this wasn't new. The internet had always treated the Whittakers like a morality mirror, a way to project its own values, biases, and guilt onto a family that never asked for it. This time, though, the tone was sharper, meaner, personal. When BJ spoke, she didn't just defend herself, she exposed her pain. She talked about betrayal, about being filmed, discussed, and criticized by people who had never set foot in their town, about feeling like her whole life had become an open wound the world couldn't stop touching. She said Patrick wasn't trying to protect her, he was trying to control her. She said he talked like he cared, but every word came from pride, not compassion. He thinks he's better than us now, she said in one live stream. He forgot where he came from. Those words hit Patrick harder than the internet will ever know, because deep down, that's the accusation he fears the most. To understand why, you have to go back to the beginning, before the money, before the arguments, before the internet discovered the Whittakers. Patrick wasn't always the man caught in controversy. He was just a neighbor, a man with a camera and a little bit of curiosity. He saw a family who had been forgotten by the world and decided to tell their story. First, it was pure laughter, small talk, moments that felt honest and kind. But once views turned into revenue, everything shifted. The lines between help and hustle blurred, and somewhere between the videos and the paychecks, Patrick stopped being a friend and started being a brand. That's what BJ means when she says he forgot. She's not just talking about money, she's talking about memory. When the confrontation escalated, others joined in. Eric was dragged back into the conversation. Viewers started asking where his share of the money went, what his contract said, and whether he'd also withheld payments from the family. He didn't respond, not publicly, but the silence only fueled the storm. Every creator who'd ever covered the Whittakers, from the biggest names to the smallest gossip pages, started making videos again. Patrick versus BJ, the $7,000 scandal. Who's lying now? The thumbnails were bright, the headlines were sensational, and in every one of them, two people's real lives became clickbait, while the internet argued. Patrick went live again, this time to defend himself. He looked tired, frustrated, almost angry that he had to explain what he thought should have been obvious. He said he wasn't keeping the money out of greed. He said he'd been working nonstop, filming, editing, trying to keep the platforms alive. He said the family didn't understand how much it cost to maintain pages, keep ads running, and deal with payouts. But what he really said, beneath all the explanations, was that he didn't trust BJ, and trust, once gone, doesn't come back. BJ, of course, fired back again. She said Patrick could say whatever he wanted. She wasn't afraid of him. She laughed in that sharp, familiar way that sounds like anger and sadness tangled together. She said he'd never cared about the Whittakers. He'd only cared about himself. She said, he got his house, his car, his money, we got stress. Her words cut deep because they weren't completely wrong. Even Patrick's defenders had to admit it. He benefited more than anyone from their fame, but the question isn't whether he benefited, it's whether he owed something back. That's what makes this confrontation so raw. Both sides are right, and both sides are wrong. As the argument grew, something strange happened. People started picking apart the psychology behind it, calling it the savior complex. They said Patrick had fallen into the same trap that well-meaning outsiders often do. He believed he could save a family, but when saving them didn't look how he expected, he turned that frustration into control. He decided who was worthy of help, who was safe to give money to, who was responsible. And in doing so, he stopped being part of the story and started trying to author it, but real lives don't fit into neat storylines. They're messy. And the Whittakers' lives are messier than most. Meanwhile, the comments under BJ's videos were just as divided. Some people cheered her on, telling her to fight for what's hers. Others mocked her, calling her unstable, manipulative, or high. It's the cruel double standard of the internet. We say we care about addiction until the addict starts talking. Then we pick apart every word. Every facial expression, every pause, looking for proof of guilt. BJ wasn't perfect. She stumbled. She got angry, but she also did something few people in her position can. She demanded to be seen as more than an addict. She demanded her voice back. Patrick, on the other hand, withdrew. The more people talked, the less he said. It wasn't shame. It was fatigue, the kind that comes from being dragged through the digital mud for days on end. But even in silence, he didn't back down. He said he still had the money, untouched, sitting in an account. He said he'd release it when the time is right. The internet called that another excuse. They said he was moving the goalpost, keeping the controversy alive because it kept his name relevant, and maybe, deep down, even he knew that every argument, every live stream, every accusation was keeping him in the spotlight. In a strange way, the fight had become its own form of currency. The most tragic part is that both Patrick and BJ think they're right. Patrick believes he's saving her. BJ believes she's standing up for herself, and maybe they both are. Because the truth about addiction isn't black and white, it's gray and bleeding. Sometimes help hurts, and sometimes defiance is survival. What looks like selfishness might be pain, what looks like control might be fear. Patrick fears what BJ will do with the money. BJ fears being erased, again, by someone claiming to know what's best. Both of them are trying to hold on to dignity in a world that doesn't value it, but there's something else happening under the surface. Something few people are talking about. It's the quiet influence of the viewers, the same people who fuel these conflicts with their attention. Every time someone comments, he's right or she's wrong, they add another log to the fire. They keep the feud alive because outrage feels like participation, but outrage doesn't heal anything. It just sells, and the more we watch, the more these real lives start to look like entertainment. On one of her latest lives, BJ said something that stopped people cold. She said, "If you think I'm gonna be the joke of the internet, you got another thing coming." Her voice cracked when she said it. For a moment, she didn't sound angry. She sounded tired. That's the sound of someone who knows the world is laughing but keeps performing anyway, because that's all she's ever known. Patrick, too, is tired, but he won't show it. He's too deep in the narrative now to step out. If he admits defeat, he loses control. If he keeps fighting, he becomes the villain, and maybe that's the saddest part of all in this story. There's no way to win. By the time October rolled around, the debate had reached every corner of the internet. Some creators started calling for a truce. Others wanted Patrick to show proof, bank statements, screenshots, receipts, transparency. They called it, but transparency isn't what the audience really wants. They want drama, they want emotion, they want to feel something, and as long as Patrick and BJ keep giving them that, no one will ever walk away. Because in a world that thrives on spectacle, pain is content and content is profit. Behind the scenes, though, a quieter question keeps echoing. What happens when this all ends? When the views dry up? When the money's gone? When the last live stream fades? Who's left to pick up the pieces? Patrick says he'll give the money someday. BJ says she never forgive him. Eric's silence hangs over them, both like fog dog and the audience. The hundreds of thousands who claim to care will move on to the next story, but the Whittakers and Patrick will still be there. In the same small town, with the same pain, the same distrust, the same ghosts. Because for them, this isn't entertainment. It's home. Comment below. Whose side are you on? Patrick, who says he's protecting them, or BJ, who says she's been betrayed? And deeper still, are we, the viewers, any better for watching it all unfold? Weeks have passed since the live stream. The arguments have faded a little, but the bitterness hasn't. The comments still come. Slower now, but steady, like rain that refuses to stop. Patrick hasn't said much lately. He's gone quiet again. Watching the storm he created move on without him. But silence doesn't erase anything. If anything, it makes people listen harder, because now, every word left unsaid sounds louder than the ones he already spoke. BJ's voice still echoes through the channels, sometimes angry, sometimes tired. She's told her side again and again. She says she's done being embarrassed, done being treated like she's broken, done letting anyone hold her life hostage. But there's sadness in that defiance. You can hear it in the pauses between her sentences, a kind of weariness that comes from being misunderstood too many times. She's angry at Patrick, yes, but she's also angry at the world. At the cameras. At the people who film her, watch her, judge her. At the people who claim to care but secretly love the chaos. Patrick says he was trying to help. BJ says he was trying to humiliate her. Maybe they're both right. Maybe that's the problem, because what started as a conversation about money has become a mirror, one that reflects everything ugly about how we consume people's pain. The Whittakers' story was supposed to be about compassion. Now it's about currency. And that's the quiet tragedy hiding behind every viral video. Patrick used to talk about how much he cared for the family. He'd film Timmy laughing, talk about their struggles, say he wanted to show the world their heart. And maybe at the beginning he did, but the internet doesn't care about heart. It cares about content. Somewhere between those first few uploads and this $7,000 standoff, humanity got replaced with headlines, and Patrick, whether he meant to or not, became the face of that shift, the man who turned empathy into economics. Now, his name carries weight in ways he never imagined. People don't just see Patrick, they see every creator who's ever claimed to help someone online while making a living off their pain. They see every camera that's ever pointed at poverty and called it storytelling. They see every good intention that turned into a business plan. That's what makes this reckoning bigger than one man and one family. This is the cost of visibility. For years, the Whittakers lived in quiet isolation, their lives simple, private, unseen. Then came fame. Then came fans. Then came money. And with it, the slow erosion of trust. Now, even the act of kindness is viewed with suspicion. When someone offers food, they wonder what video will come next. When someone gives money, they wonder what caption it'll appear under. And when someone refuses to give money, like Patrick, they wonder if it's greed or guilt. There's no purity left in generosity when everyone's watching. On one of his rare updates, Patrick said something few people noticed. He said, "You try to help people and they crucify you for it." His voice cracked when he said, It wasn't anger. It was exhaustion. The kind that doesn't come from fighting with others, but from fighting with yourself. He's tired of being hated. Tired of being questioned. Tired of watching people he once loved turn into strangers on a screen. But most of all, he's tired of the noise, the endless noise that turns every good deed into content, every conflict into entertainment. Meanwhile, BJ doesn't stop talking because she can't afford to. Silence is dangerous for her. Silence means being forgotten. And in the online world, being forgotten is worse than being hated. So she keeps speaking, keeps posting, keeps fighting to remind people she's real, because if she stops, she becomes just another clip, another cautionary tale of what happens when poverty meets fame. Some fans have started turning away. They say the story's gotten too dark. Too repetitive. Too sad. But that's the truth of it, stories like this. Don't end cleanly. They fade. They rot slowly in the corners of the internet, waiting for the next scandal to bury them, the Whittakers. Lives go on, Patrick's life goes on, but their names will always be tied to that one number, $7,000, not because of what it could buy, but because of what it cost, the cost of trust, the cost of pride, the cost of being human in a world that turns humanity into HSHTAGS. Patrick once said he wanted to show the world the real people. Behind the camera he did, but the world didn't want real. The world wanted drama. Now, all that's left are fragments, a family in ruins, a man defending his choices, and an audience pretending to understand. You can't help but wonder, what if Patrick had just given the money? Would it have changed anything? Would it have healed the wound or made it worse? The truth is, money can't fix what fame has broken. It never could, because this isn't about dollars. It's about dignity, and once dignity becomes public property, it's almost impossible to buy back. Patrick still says he's doing the right thing. Jay still says he's a thief. And in the spaces between their words, the world keeps choosing sides, but if you listen closely, you can hear the echo of something larger, the sound of a question that refuses to go away. Who are we when we decide who deserves compassion? Who are we when we call someone an addict and use that word to take their agency away? Who are we when we profit from watching strangers fall apart and call it empathy? The Whittaker story isn't over, but it's no longer just theirs. It belongs to the internet now, to every person who clicked, shared, argued, and judged. Patrick says he's holding that money for safekeeping, but maybe, deep down, what he's really holding is his last piece of control, his last piece of relevance. And maybe BJ's fight isn't about 7,000 at all. Maybe it's about the only thing she's ever really wanted, respect. As time moves forward, both will keep living their separate lives in the same small corner of West Virginia, under the same sky, haunted by the same cameras that once brought them together. The money will eventually run out, the videos will stop trending, the names will fade from algorithms, but the damage, that will stay, because the internet never forgets. It just moves on. In the end, this isn't a story about who was right or wrong. It's a story about what happens when pain becomes public. When help becomes hierarchy, when love becomes leverage. Patrick says he's protecting the WHATTAKERs. BJ says she's protecting herself, but the truth? Neither of them were ever truly protected. Not from the cameras, not from each other, not from us. And maybe that's the hardest truth to swallow, that we, the viewers, became part of the very cycle they're trapped in, because every view, every comment, every reaction fed the fire that burned them both. We watched them struggle. We watched them fight. We watched them break, and we called it a story, but these weren't characters. They were people. And once we turned their suffering into spectacle, we became part of it too. So when Patrick says he's keeping the money, maybe it's not just for BJ. Maybe it's for all of us. A twisted kind of mirror held up to our own hunger for someone else's pain, because in the end, that's what this whole thing really is. A reflection. Of power. Of pride. Of addiction. Not just to drugs, but to attention. And of the price we pay when we stop seeing people as people and start seeing them as content. Comment below. Do you think Patrick's choice was ever about BJ, or was it always about control? And after everything that's happened, who really owes who? Patrick to the Whittakers, or all of us to them? Thank you for watching this video. Click here to watch another video that might interest you.